Traveling back to the moon and developing it would open up doors to endless possibilities. As far as we know, the moon contains helium-3, water, and rare earth minerals. Most of the minerals the moon contains are still unknown to man because of the little exploration done on the moon. All of our answers for helping the future generations and saving the Earth lies on the moon. Developing a space center on it not only helps with research on the moon, but could be a next step for traveling to even further planets such as Mars. But I'll get into that later. In order for our world to keep evolving and to save our planet from further destruction, we need to start taking risks. There's far too many reasons why we should go to the moon as opposed to why we shouldn't go. For my first argument, it's been said that there are mass amounts of helium-3 on the moon. Helium-3 is extremely rare to find on Earth due to Earth's surrounding magnetic field, meaning there's no way a significant amount of helium-3 ever will develop here. The only way to obtain more would be to retrieve it from the moon. Because of the lack of atmosphere, the moon is bombarded with large quantities due to the solar winds caused by the sun. Being able to have mass amounts of helium-3 here on Earth would be a huge step in advancing electrical power and solving another problem Earth faces: radioactive waste. Current nuclear power plants have nuclear fission reactors in which uranium nuclei are split apart. This releases energy, but also radioactivity and spent nuclear fuel that is reprocessed into uranium, plutonium, and radioactive waste, which has to be safely stored, effectively indefinitely, according to an article explaining the future on January 30th of this year. Helium-3 is a clean and efficient form of energy. The unique structure allows it to be used as a fuel for nuclear fusion, which we could use to generate large quantities of electrical power without producing radioactive byproducts. Having helium-3 here on Earth would reduce harmful effects on Earth's atmosphere tremendously. My second argument. In an article on March 2010, a U.S. astronaut by the name of Ronald J. Guerin was interviewed about why we should return to the moon. He stated, "Great nations accomplish extraordinary endeavors that help to maintain their leadership in the world. America's history is built on a desire to open new frontiers and to seek new discoveries. NASA's vision for space exploration acknowledges that. Mankind is drawn to the heavens for the same reason we were once drawn into unknown lands and across the open sea. We choose to explore space because doing so improves our lives and lifts our national spirit." He also brought up the Transcontinental Railroad example. On May 10, 1869, the first transcontinental railroad was complete. The railroad connected from the west of the Mississippi all the way to the San Francisco Bay. This allowed for a quicker and more efficient way of importing and exporting goods across the country. So, what he meant by that was before the railroad was built, no one thought there was anything wrong with the way they exported goods and traveled across the country. That's what they were used to. Until the railroad was built, Americans looked back and could not imagine not having that railroad. That's how we are now. Could you imagine not having GPS on your phone and having to pull over and use a map? The world around us is constantly advancing. We are blind to all the possibilities developing the moon could open up for mankind. It is the natural order for humans to make new advances for our way of living, and with the ability to go back and forth to the moon, it would be a waste of time, technology, and research not to take the next step. Argument 3. The biggest issue with going to the moon is the financial aspect of it all. There is new evidence coming out based on an article from PopSci in 2015 that returning to the moon might not be as expensive as once projected. Returning humans to the moon could cost 90% less than expected, bringing estimated costs down from $100 billion to $10 billion. That's something that NASA could afford on its current deep space human spaceflight budget. A factor of 10 reduction in cost changes everything, said Mark Hopkins, Executive Committee Chair of the National Space Society, in a press release. The study was conducted by the National Space Society and the Space Frontier Foundation, two nonprofit organizations that advocate building human settlements beyond Earth. It was reviewed by an independent team of former NASA executives, astronauts, and space policy experts. Plus, mining fuel from the lunar surface could make going back to the moon economically viable. Data from the Lunar Crater Observation and Sensing Satellite suggests that water ice may be plentiful on the moon, especially near the poles. Turning water found on the moon into rocket fuel could mean traveling to our closest planet, Mars, using the moon as some type of pit stop. Which brings me to my next point. The moon is a stepping stone to more ambitious planetary exploration goals. The one we hear a lot about is a human trip to Mars. A full colony or Mars base will take decades to plan and build. The best way to learn how to do that safely is to practice on the moon. It gives explorers a chance to learn to live in hostile environments, lower gravity, and to test the technologies needed for their survival. Since we've done it several times before, lunar travel and living on the moon could be achieved in the very near future. The US has all of the tools, intelligence, and technology they need to return and develop the moon. Developing the moon is essential to ensuring mankind's future, whether its future is on Mars or here on Earth.